So I want to invite to the stage David Solana, co-founder and co-CEO of Opinator. He's talking your CX program is 114 years older than Canada. Time to rebuild it. David?
Yep. Oh, I left the
Uh-oh, we need clicker.
the pointer. Thank you.
All right, help me welcome David to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'm David Solana. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Opinator. We help companies move beyond traditional feedback, old NPS kind of measurement, make CX more human, and turn feedback into real business outcomes. But I'm not here to talk today about Opinator. I want to talk about how you can move from an old model that has been standing for a long time to something new, to something that your customers are demanding, that fits the world that the digital customer lives in today. Something based on real-time, personalization, and impact instead of just insights. But let me start with a story, and I'll explain the title of my session. The year is 1753. A reverend in Exeter, England, named Jeremiah Mills, has this innovative idea of sending out a survey, so-called survey, 120 questions to the parishes of Devon to learn about, to understand them better, to learn about their needs. This came to be known as the Mills Parochial Questionnaire, and it is arguably the first example of a customer feedback program. Fast forward to 2026, more specifically to last week, and I get this survey, which is going to take me only 10 minutes of my time, from one of the top brands in the world, and one of the top technology companies in the world. I mean, if they are doing this, you can imagine that many other thousands, millions of companies are doing exactly the same. And then they go on, asking me questions very much like, Mr. Jeremiah Mills did 273 years ago. I rent a car. I just rented a car, and I get this survey. These are things, that come from this very week. Endless pages of radio buttons conceived to be filled with a pen or paper. What has happened here? We have come a long way. We have the internet, mobile devices. We've been to the moon and back. Congratulations, Jeremy Hansen. And this hasn't changed. CX never made the transition from an analog world to the digital world. And that's the first thing that we need to focus on, because most companies are still operating under an analog old CX model identical to the one that Mr. Mills had in the 18th century. Basically, send out the survey, capture data, store it, then analyze it, and then maybe at some point in the future do something about it. This is not how the digital world works. In the digital world, everything happens simultaneously, instantly, not sequentially, not delayed, not reactive. So what can we do to fix this? Because there are many fundamental things that we need to do before we can start talking about other more sophisticated things. And some people say, AI, that's the solution. And we have a lot of AI. We are an AI company. We do amazing things with AI for our clients. Some of the top brands in Europe and the Americas. But AI is not the solution if your model is still an 18th century model. You're not going to, it's not about fixing the wagon, basically. If you put AI on wagon wheels, you're only going to get noise, basically, which is what many companies are getting. If you have a 2% response rate on your surveys, and you just keep bombarding your clients with more and more surveys, AI is just going to provide you with insights that are not very useful. Then some bright minds say, okay, we cannot overcome the challenge of that low engagement, of the low response rates. No problem. We don't need to talk to our customers. We'll just, make artificial customers. We'll talk to robots. We'll build synthetic audiences. And there are, serious people out there saying that companies don't need to talk to customers any longer. Do you know of any company in the world that does not need to talk to their customers or does not want to talk to their customers? I meet with clients constantly, and they all want to learn about them. Actually, in the digital world, we should focus on building better interactions. So the solution is not to, there are no shortcuts. We need to fix this from the ground up. We cannot fix the wagon. We have to build a rocket that will take us to new heights. Like a rocket for the digital world. Once again, CX never made that transition to the digital world, and we need to do it. How are we going to do it? We need to build a new model, which is based on 3 things that are not serial, sequential, linear. They happen simultaneously, dynamically, at the same time, in real time. They're indistinguishable to a customer, to a client that is interacting with you. And those are the engagement, the understanding, and the action or impact. And those are the 3 things that we're going to talk about today. Engage, how to generate and sustain relevant and potentially profitable interactions with your target audiences. Understand how to turn data, how to turn that feedback into clear insights, especially into personalized insights. And then, of course, the action, the impact. Everyone is talking here about, how to get ROI, how to get that impact out of your CX and VOC programs, how to turn those interactions into real personalized impact. First pillar, engage. Okay, very important and something that most companies, I would say almost all of them, have neglected forever and are still neglecting it. To measure an experience, you need to create one. I'm sorry, but it is that way. Why? Because if you don't create an experience, nobody is going to interact with you in the digital world. Period. Look around you. TikTok, Instagram. Why are they so worried in getting your eyeballs in infinite scrolling? They want your attention. They need your attention. They know that your attention is pure gold. And then you're sending out a black and white 100-question survey. Do you think anybody is going to stop and give you 2 seconds of their time? That's what attention span is today. In order to measure an experience, you need to build one. The whole universe is competing for the eyeballs of your customers. That has completely changed in the digital world. In the analog world, if you were bank A, you would compete with bank B and bank C. Not in the digital world. In the digital world, if you're a bank, you're competing with Instagram. You're competing with a retail company. You're competing with anyone that craves, that wants the attention of your customers, that wants to get their eyeballs, even for just a few seconds. And you need to get into that race. You need to build experiences. And how do you do that? Well, you need to move from surveys to interactive, rich, content-rich, two-way interactions. We started working on this 15 years ago. So, we've come a long way. And we know a bit about how to create rich, bidirectional feedback experiences, which we call OPs, opinionator personalized interfaces. And, I could show you lots and lots of different examples. And of course, the advantages of those feedback experiences, it's not just, as I said before, about the survey. It's about the whole model, because these are not just, one-way interactions conceived to get information and data and store it. They're programmable units, and they have real-time action, and they enable you to respond instantly to customers, et cetera, et cetera. But again, we have literally hundreds of different examples. Some of the advantages of those feedback experiences versus traditional surveys, the first one is pretty obvious. You're going to get way higher response rates. We have clients in some touch points, and I'll get to this in a minute, because each experience is going to be different depending on the journey, on the touch point, on the product, et cetera, and that's the way it should be. On some touch points, they're getting response rates above 65%, 75%. I've seen OPs with response rates of 84%. That's the highest I've seen, just to give you an idea. The second thing, and we didn't expect this when we started designing these feedback experiences, was that the quality of feedback is better. Typically, when someone goes through the painful experience of filling out the survey, he's not enjoying the experience, okay? We will all agree in that. So he's doing that mechanically or automatically. 444, 555. I'm pretty sure that you've seen, please don't forget to complete the survey. You just want to go home or go to lunch or whatever you do. 555, 444, it was okay. That's it. That's a very low quality kind of feedback. And the insights that are going to come from that are going to be not very useful. When you have someone's full attention, you're going to get very specific feedback. They're going to dedicate more time to telling you, about their experiences. Third advantage is that you're going to capture every voice. There are estimations that between 80 and 85% of all organizations only get feedback from 30% or less of their customer base. Okay? That's tragic. That means that you never hear from 70% or more of your customers, okay? And that you're missing out, many things, especially from people that are moderately satisfied or that are extremely satisfied with you, but because they never even bother to complete a survey. And you need to learn about those experiences. And of course, you integrate, instead of using traditional elements of interaction like checkboxes and radio buttons, you have the freedom to use anything, product, service, branding element, to interact with your target audience. And that is going to create also an emotional connection. You're leveraging your branding investments, you're leveraging your marketing, advertising investments. You want to interact with your customers in your own way, not with a set of radio buttons or checkboxes in black and white. All right, second pillar, understand. And here things start getting even more interesting. Most of the people I talk to, most of the literature about CX and VOC programs revolves around this figure or around this metric of the NPS. All right, I see people constantly, coming anew into the CX space, and they tell me, my managers have told me I'm the NPS manager. I have to look after NPS, take care of NPS, etc., etc. And many people tend to think that NPS is CX. It puzzles me how just a question like, would you recommend us, asked to different people in completely different situations, whatever they are doing, whoever they are, came to be or became the standard of the metric for a CX management program. So what does this mean? What does it represent? Or more specifically, who does it represent? The person on the right or the person on the left? Because they are completely different customers and people, and they have completely different profiles, and they have different ambitions and different experiences, and you're just taking an average. And the answer is your NPS score describes nobody. Nothing. It's just an average. An average is, as I've said before, kill insights. Average is lie. You know the famous old joke, if I've eaten 2 chickens and you have eaten none, we have both eaten a chicken, right? So, that's the statistics. That's what you get with NPS. But your customers give you very precise insights, very precise information. And that's what you need to focus on. Metrics are always going to be there, and they're good. Especially, over time, you can tell, if things are going better, worse. It's an indicator, and that's what they should be. But you need to focus on the individual insights from particular customers. And how do you do that? There is no way but to personalize insights. Here is the good news. Nobody in the world is doing this. Well, a few companies that are working with Opinator, but apart from them, nobody else is personalizing insights. So that's great news for you, because if you start doing that, you're going to have a huge competitive advantage over your competitors. And I'll give you, clear examples. Who here is guilty of the crime of sending out a survey to all of your customers, a survey which is identical for all of them? Raise your hands. Great. Who here has a feedback tab on their website or mobile app that says feedback? And it's identical on every page, and it's identical for every customer, whatever they are doing. I know I meet with different execs at different companies. I talk to CEOs, etc. And I ask them, if you, Mr. CEO of Wells Fargo, if you met they introduce you to a person at a party, and they tell you, this is Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. She's been a customer of yours for 35 years. She's your great customer. What would you tell that person? What would you ask that person? Would you ask her, for instance, would you recommend us? And then if she said, oh yeah, absolutely, I'm super happy. Okay, thank you very much for your feedback. I really value your opinion. Okay, that would be nuts. Would you talk to that person in the same way that you would talk to, the son of a friend who just opened an account with you? Nobody is doing that. And we need to start doing that. And the first thing that you can do, which is actually pretty simple, is to make feedback contextual, even before getting to the individual insight. You have the ability, technology enables you to trigger the right interactions at the right moment. So one of the things that we're doing, for instance, with BBVA, with Santander, other banks, with BBVA, just to give you an idea, they have over 2,500 unique points of interaction with Opinator. I'll say that again, 2,500, not 4, not 50, 2,500 unique. That means that they know precisely what is happening at each touch point in different customer journeys, in different products. For instance, if they launch a new mortgage, and they go live on national TV with a commercial, we have this new great mortgage, blah, 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 affordable, you can buy your house now, blah, blah, blah. From the very first second, they know how people are interacting on the new mortgages app or website, okay? They know exactly what is happening, if people are, signing up, if people are abandoning projects, okay? So the right interaction at the right moment, not the same interaction to everyone. Second, behavior-driven. Trigger by what the customer is actually doing. Is this customer going forward? Has she completed her process, or is she going back? And we have different triggers. For instance, for someone who is just doing nothing. She's just sitting there for 5 seconds. You have to put yourself in the place of, we are constantly going back to, face-to-face conversations, okay? If you were a salesperson trying to sell a mortgage, a deposit, a new account to a person, how would that interaction be? How would that conversation? If that person told you, for instance, well, I don't know if this is the right account for me, or the right investment product, would you say, okay, thank you very much for your feedback. Would you recommend us? Okay. You would try to perhaps profile that person better. Maybe this is an account for seniors, and this person is 24, okay? Maybe it's the other way around. Try to, adapt the conversation to what is happening, to what the person is telling you, to what you know about the person, to the precise point where the interaction is happening, to the past history of interaction. Our brains do that extremely well, very, very well. We combine, instantly what someone is telling us. First of all, if we know someone or not, what the person is telling us with information that we know about that person, with metadata. Is this conversation happening at a conference, at a party, in an elevator, etc., etc.? And then we come up with the best possible responses and actions. When you do all that, you can get to the individual level. You can have different conversations with Patricia than with David, because there are two different customers. If you're a telecommunications company, the kind of interactions that you want to have with your VIPs, the clients that have super high ARPU, are very different from someone who is, behind payments. Okay? If you lost that customer, that's okay, maybe. You don't care. You don't have to do much. If your absolute best customer, someone that has been with you for 35 years, gives you a 9 instead of a 10, why is he giving us a 9? Maybe the CEO needs to call this person. So, there are no general rules. It depends on the individual interactions that you're going to create. So start personalizing your feedback experiences. And of course, on top of that, again, we have AI-powered insights. We do text analytics, structured and unstructured analysis. And I could be talking hours here about the insights that you're going to get. But when I was preparing for the presentation, I said, what is the number one most important thing that I've seen that has made a difference? And it is that personalization instead of getting, generic feedback. Last, act. And this is, typically the real challenge for most companies, especially because they haven't done 1 and 2. Thank you very much for your feedback. We value your opinion. How many times, again, have we heard that? Most conversations, I think it's estimated like close to 90% of all the surveys end with those, with either of those sentences, and then that's the last thing that you hear from that company. This, I think, if you take something out of this session, please remember these 2 sentences. Action is not what you do later with the data that you have collected. It's surprising, but most CX professionals that I talk to still think in 2026 that action is something that you do later with the information that you collect, like the powdered wig guy in 1753. In the digital world, action is part of the experience. If you're talking to someone and you're responding in real time, whatever you're telling that person, if you're capable of fixing a problem, of providing the information that that person needed, that action to her, to him, is part of the experience. It's not something that is being done later. I agree that, maybe not always you'll be able to fix things in real time, but you have to try to get as close as possible to the moment of the interaction. And yes, again, we have closed the loop, and you're going to get everything that you were getting before. You're always going to get all that data, NPS, the dashboards, et cetera, but there is so much more that you can do to go beyond that. If the customer doesn't feel it, if she doesn't see it, it never happened. And in the digital world, later, typically, it's too late. Again, attention spans are super short. Customers are less and less loyal to brands. They will change immediately. By the time you want to do something, there is no fix. Okay? So you need to bring the action closer to the experience moment. I'll give you a good example of this. And we are saving this company hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and weeks. I was talking to someone during lunch about this. Big telco in Europe and LATAM, they did the typical thing that nobody questioned. They sent out, they ran the B2B customer experience program with Opinator. They were sending out periodically surveys to the SMBs, hundreds of thousands or millions of SMBs, and collecting data. They would analyze the data, and they would find out that some of those SMBs were not aware that they had an account manager assigned, or they were aware of that, but they had never talked to their account manager, etc. Typically they would send that to the sales department. The sales department would distribute that to the account managers. They had a list of companies that they would need to contact. In some cases, the contact center would help them. They would start calling the SMBs weeks later, if not months. We have implemented a project with them. This started even before AI, but now with AI, it's getting just absolutely stunning, whereby as the interaction is happening, okay, so they're launching interactions in different places. For instance, an SMB, logged on to check their bill, and then you're sending, instead of sending a survey over email, in that right moment, in a transactional way, they're measuring things and can infer or actually ask explicitly, do you know your account manager? Have you been in contact with your account manager, et cetera, et cetera. If they say no, we have the ability to continue the conversation. Okay, so it's not pre-written. It's based on AI. It's what we call AI dynamic engagement. It's not about turning a survey into a chat session, because it needs to be short, because once again, attention spans are short, but you get very meaningful, precise, detailed information about what is happening exactly at that point. At that moment, our AI model combines the information, goes to the CRM of this company, fetches the information about that account manager, and shows it to the customer, even with the picture, telephone number. Do you want to call this person right now? Do you want that person to call you? So that's a great example of how the action has become part of the experience, indistinguishable from the experience itself. So, I have like 2 minutes, so things you can do, I think I've mentioned them already. Move from survey to a dialogue, to two-way interactions. Combine what the customer is telling you, what you know about that customer, and then, make impact by turning the action as or part of the experience. Okay, I'll leave you with a call to action, the Monday test. Something that you can take back to your teams, maybe not even on Monday, on Thursday. We should call it the Thursday test. Pick one touch point, not two, one. Don't try to fix your whole CX program. Pick one touch point. This is the way we've started with every company. With BBVA, we started with BBVA came 12 years ago with one touch point. It was an application, gamified for the youth. That's when they started. One touch point, and we started working on some of these concepts. Define a trigger and outcome. Again, imagine that you were talking to a person, okay? Face to face. Why is this interaction going to be launched? What do you want to do? What do you want to learn? What do you want to, do with it? What's going to be the trigger, the outcome or outcomes? Several things can happen at the same time. If this person tells me this, I'm going to do that. If this person told me, don't think about technology. Think about face-to-face conversations. And then automate it. And then, implement it. If you do that with one touch point, you can do it with 5. If you can do it with 5, you can do it with 100. And the kind of information, I encourage you can go to our website, download a case study that we have with Santander when they deployed their new app, and they deployed over 100 OBs over different places on their app. And it was, the kind of information that they got was unparalleled. The detail of information. If you don't know how to do that, how to implement it, how to automate it, don't worry. We are here to help. So, drop by our booth. We'll tell you how that can be done easily. Run the Monday test with us. We are offering free pilots. We're doing that constantly with all sorts of companies from many different sectors. We're a gold sponsor. We have our booth by the coffee station there. And please make sure that, I'm leaving my personal email there. You can also connect with me. The QR code will lead you to my LinkedIn profile. Start today. You have the opportunity to change and to start fixing that old model and bringing it to the new digital world. Thank you very much.